Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about tmux sessions. This is not going to be an intro video to tmux itself. If you're interested in it, go ahead and watch my other video. I'll leave a link in the description. Today I want to focus on how you can use tmux sessions to make your workflow significantly better. So we are going to, first of all, try to work on a mental model how I approach sessions, and hopefully at the end of the video you will have a good idea what can you do with different tmux sessions and how can they be used. So throughout the video I will show you about 5 various categories of tmux sessions and how I reason about them, how I use them, and hopefully give you a little bit more ideas of how to incorporate it with your workflow. So first of all, what are tmux sessions and what is tmux? Really quickly, tmux is a terminal multiplexer, meaning that instead of having one terminal window, you suddenly can have multiple of those split between windows, panes, and sessions. Again, tmux basics, it's a different video, but at the end of the day, the main thought behind this is that for me, tmux sessions are not just isolated layouts, but they actually a way to organize my work. I like to think about them more like workbenches. So more about this a little later. So let's get into classifying different sessions. I am using predominantly 2 programs, tmux and tmuxinator. Tmuxinator is simply a program that enables you to create static tmux sessions described in a YAML file. There are other plugins in tmux like tmux resurrect and others that you can use to do all kinds of stuff. But for my specific workflow, a mix of both is what works best for me. So starting from the static session. The static sessions is something that has fixed and predictable layout. And I'll show you a few examples of it. So think about having panes that always run the same programs, always run the same scripts, and you just want to isolate them from other things. It's a simple muscle memory of creating an interesting sessions. So the philosophy behind it is that it is a consistent session that behaves the same, looks the same, and is very predictable to quickly call it out. So let me show you a few examples. One is a session that I call relax. As you can see, this shortcut, in my case Alt-T, brings all the tmux sessions that I have defined. And if I type relax and hit it, you will see that I've loaded my songs here. And at the bottom is a program called Kava that will start moving when the songs are playing. So a little synthesizer. Pretty fun session, quirky, and you can see my taste in music here. Those are just some MP3 files that I listen to where I work or program. Again, now I can swap back to the previous session. In my case, this is a Control S or Alt S rather, and I can swap between those two super quickly. So I can, work a little bit on something, swap to this session, select a different music, and that's how it goes. To close the session, I have a dedicated binding Alt-E, and it shows me all the sessions that I have currently open. I navigate to relax, hit enter, and as you can see, it's closed. So only those sessions with stars are currently active. All right, great. What are the other examples? A little bit more useful session would be my home lab session. So home lab session is a little bit special in a sense that it uses a program called direnv to load Kubernetes context from my home lab. My home lab runs on my little Geekom computer, and it just runs a regular Kubernetes cluster. So I can do all kinds of things here, and I can play around. And you notice that at the bottom here, it's a lot of variables, but at the bottom here, we have Kubernetes contexts. This context is not available in other sessions. It's just a dedicated, encapsulated session where I can work with various things related to my home lab. And as you can see, I have 2 windows. One is dedicated for K9S, which is a Kubernetes viewer, and another one, just an open session. I can do anything I want here. Again, Alt-E, I can navigate to home lab, close it, and we are back to our slides. So that's the first example of the sessions. I want to bundle with this another example, which is creating sessions from Git repositories inside of a folder. So it's a very simple command, just tmux create session and applying a folder as a parameter. And I use those sessions also very often when I just want to explore quickly a repository and create a separate session. So those are static sessions. Now we are moving to dynamic sessions. Dynamic sessions are quite interesting, and they actually use something in tmuxinator which is called ERB, which is a way to parse variables that you pass to a file. I will show you this file in a second. But those sessions are special because they behave dynamically depending on what session you're actually doing. So first of all, let me show you the file itself. So I'm going to open a generic session right now called dev. This is just my session for development. And we are going to do mux, which is my alias for, so which mux is alias for tmuxinator. So mux, edit, and we are going to edit the git monitor session. So you can see super simple YAML file here, and here we have a variable. So in this case, either I am taking the environment variable pwd from where I'm calling the session, from where I'm executing it, or I am just providing this dir built-in Ruby variable. At the bottom here, you can see that tmuxinator gives me various options. So I have, in this case, only one window, and I have a custom layout. There are many layouts that you can use from in tmuxinator. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but suffice to say, you can split your panes horizontally, vertically, but you can also provide this rather jarring looking layout. But this is very simple. It's just tmux list windows, and it gives you this layout of your current windows. Super simple, just copy paste, and that's it. So this session runs lazy git, it runs this program, and it also runs something from my GH-CLI scripts. I have this GH preview, and this script, I can open now another session. As you can see, I'm trying to show you how it works in reality. So here, dot files, we are changing to dot files, opening new window, and then I want to do GH-CLI. I've opened the script that you've seen in our dev session. So this is the script. I could also navigate from here, go to file, but I wanted to show you how this could be done like this. All right, so let's go back to the edit mode here, and we are going to swap to our dot files, and we have various functions. This is just my bag of Git related functions, and I want to actually change it. Maybe I want to say list a selected PR in the current repository. So I can call this function. So we're just going to copy this word, aw, and we're going to go back to the previous session, and we're going to select it and paste. So I've changed how the session would behave. So just to show you how you can edit those files real quick. Okay, so we've codified what should happen when the session is being connected. So first of all, let me close the dev session. We are back in our dynamic sessions, and this repository, YouTube main, contains presentations for all my YouTube videos. So now when I hit Control Alt G, you will see that I am opening a session here, and this is Git monitor minus YouTube. So this program, if you don't know, lazy git is really cool for interacting with Git. This is my repository. So I just opened it from this repository, YouTube main, and I can swap to it real quick. So here I don't have any PRs in this repository, but here I have a simple list of commits, and I can create any kind of commands that are find useful in any repository. Okay, so now let's swap back to dot files again, and I can call the same dynamic session again, Control Alt G, And you can see it closed it for a moment, and now look, we just changed this line to call this function, and this is my .files repository this time. So essentially those sessions is like single pane of glass that is dynamic to my current session, and it will always show Git related features and kind of views. So that's pretty useful. And if I swap to it from this quickly, it's detect that I am in this specific folder and doesn't recreate it, which is instantaneous. So I can just have this context of making commits and working with my Git repository separate from actually working with the file in this case. Okay, let's swap to YouTube again. So we are continuing with our presentation. I am jumping like that to hopefully show you already in practice how this process can be extremely powerful and quick, where you swap context rapidly from various work streams and navigate around using tmux sessions. So this is an example of dynamic session, and you can think of more dynamic sessions. I have Git monitor, but anything that is folder related, you can create a dynamic sessions that detects programming language of your project and runs tests or does all kinds of crazy stuff. So the whole idea is having this kind of dynamic session that depends on the folder. All right, next session type is event-based session. So far, I've been launching sessions myself. But this one is a little different. This session is actually launched based on external event, or rather just an event in my system. And why it is useful is mostly I use this when I have to deal with various outages. So when I deal with various outages, I want my workshop or my workbench to be prepared for me up front. I don't want to go and search for various files, pull them, open them, and so on. I want to have them in one place, ready for me to work. So this is a little mix of dynamic session that is being triggered on a specific event. And I will show you in a second how this is done. So the idea is really simple. The event can be anything. In this trivial example, you might have a function that detects CPU usage, and if CPU usage is over a certain threshold, you might activate your tmux session and kind of try to troubleshoot something, right? And for me, the main benefit behind this is that it eliminates the need for me to switch context and kind of chase things around. So I might pull the runbook, I might open everything when something goes wrong. And I want to demonstrate how it looks in practice. So we are going to switch again to .files session. And here you can see something I prepared. So this requires a little bit of explanation, and I'll probably make a separate video about it. But you can see right here on top this little cloud. And this is using a system called Argos, which essentially creates GNOME desktop environment extension. It's really useful for things like, in my case, I have with Argos this system resources monitoring, as well as various services monitoring. So you see AWS, GCP, Azure, Netlify, all of those guys are weirdly enough green. Believe me, it's a lot of the time something is either red or yellow. But I can simulate this. So what often happens, if one of those services goes red or orange, as part of my job, I have to react to it and kind of see whether there's something that affects us. And typically it involves opening a tmux session, pulling various files, and kind of doing this. So I came up with this idea of creating the session automatically. So what I'm going to do, I am going to simulate the downgrade or failure of a few services. And again, I don't want to go too much into detail of how it's implemented, but it's a JSON file that kind of the Argos script constantly updates. So look what happens when I simulate some of those problems. So first of all, it changed here, GitHub major outage, AWS degraded, and it showed me a notification. Notice that it didn't didn't take me straight away to the session, but it showed me that we have this service status alert. My session is prepared. So now if you look at the sessions, you will see that there's a new guy called servmon or service monitor, and it contains a little bit more details. So the file is open. Here's a little bit more details about the services itself. I often open links or other terminal-based browsers to kind of pull a little bit more data, and I can kind of operate from this as my cockpit, so to speak. So that happens when the service is degraded. But if everything is okay, so suddenly this goes back to green status, I can do here from history, I think it's recover. So when we recover, you notice there's another notification. Again, I'm not taken to the session, and this session is cleaned up for me. So it's no longer inactive sessions. So it's very useful to think about what kind of workbench you want to be prepared for you, like what kind of tools you want to have at your disposal, depending on something happening. And I personally find it very useful not to need to search for all kinds of links and tools and files, and just be able to automatically open up a session based on an event. All right, so that were event-based sessions. One more session type that I just want to talk about. I'm not showing it because it's really easy. It's a session type that is ephemeral. The way I use it is often when I have a file that I open in NeoVim, but I just want to open it, edit it for a moment, and when I close the file, I want the session to be gone. Is it a session or a window or a pane? This is kind of the same idea. So this is very useful for not creating kind of an idle, unnecessary sessions that will clutter your workspace, just to keep things tidy. What I can show you here is how I create ephemeral panes. So let's open a new window, clear this, and when I list the folders here, you can see I am simply listing here the folders. It's all my videos that I created so far with some files. When I hit Ctrl+2, which is something I created a video about, this is part of Alacrity. What it does, it allows me to open any file or folder based on those letters. So let's open the theme.json, which starts from letter U, and then I can type F. So you can see it opened this file right in the temporary pane. When I close the file, the whole pane goes away. It's very simple, very easy, and kind of the same principle applies as with ephemeral sessions. All right, so time for a final session here, which is a little bit specialized, but I use it often for compartmentalizing work. So this session I called Compositional session, which means I can build it depending on certain specifications. So let me show you how it works in practice. First of all, I want to introduce you to a program I've been using for a while. I also created a video about it and a blog, which is called Pet Snippet. This program belongs to a category of programs that are command snippets. So when I hit Alt-C, it shows me a list, and this is a little bit narrow because I zoomed in for the video. It shows me a list of various commands that I have at my disposal. Now, those commands are snippets that I typically don't remember the exact flags for. So a good example is this check what listens on a specific port. And I have the sudo netstat, and there's a bunch of flags that I don't always remember. When I hit enter, what's happening, you could see that first of all, the command is pre-populated for me, so I can like work with it, right? And you can see that we have a new session called snippets, but what is important, this session has been created in the same folder that I was before. So going back to this YouTube main, you cannot see it because there's no, oh, actually you can here. So slides in YouTube tmux sessions. And as you can see, I have a window that is opened in this folder. Why is it useful? Is because I might need to run certain commands in the folder, but I don't want to pollute this session. So I might be working like or doing presentation in this case, but I want to have a session that essentially consists of various commands that I execute within the context of this folder. Those might be long-running commands, short-running commands. So let's actually do here. I want to see if something listens on port 5000 and I want to watch it. So nothing listens on port 5000, but I'm executing this command and watching it. Let's imagine that I want to execute a different command. So I do again Alt-C, and this time let's do git log maybe. So git log, you can see it creates additional pane. Maybe I want to search for tmux or something, right? So it created additional pane. The long-running command above here still continues to run, but I have a new pane. So this is a snippets session with a window dedicated for this specific session. I hope it's not too confusing, but the idea behind it is that now I have my various sessions that I work with, so .files and YouTube, and those two sessions, Git monitor and snippets, they are like, think of them like helper sessions that are essentially providing a dynamic view or some, additional functionality to support all the other sessions. So let's create home lab session one more time. Remember, this is my Kubernetes session, and I would like to run a kubectl command based off of this session. So remember, only this folder has my Kubernetes context. If I go somewhere like to dev folder, you notice that there's no Kubernetes context. So this is part of drenv, kind of, only in this folder it's here. So I can do the same. I can do Alt-C and do I have like a fancy Kubernetes status. When I hit enter, it opens snippets, you notice, one more time. It populates this with my command. I can hit enter, but notice we are in a different window. This window is actually dedicated to my session. And if anyone notices, this is an internal IP, so I'm not doxing myself, because I know people sometimes say you're leaking IP. This is an internal IP, so all is okay. But the main idea remains the same. Now I have separate these sessions from their mother sessions, let's say. I use it quite a lot, and it's really kind of helps me with not polluting the main session with various commands. I kind of very quickly can swap and understand I might have a long-running command or testing something, and I suddenly have more ability to have like a test workbench, so to speak. So now you can see we have quite a few sessions, right? So we have this home lab and so on. Now, if we go to home lab, this is also a Git repository. Remember, Ctrl-Alt-G, I'm opening again my, my helper session, only one commit, and here just a change for Kubernetes context. So again, I can use my Git monitoring dynamic session to kind of interact with the Git repository of this specific session. All right, let's go back to YouTube. So that was the final type of session. I am sure that, there's more ideas that you could have. For me, this is really a lot about having my workflow fit to what I need to do. It's a mix of being able to compartmentalize and isolate the workflows and also bring them together when necessary. There's a lot of built-in tmux features that can help you kind of like move panes between sessions and so on, but I find them a little bit cumbersome to use. So this is what I settled on with a few bash scripts, tmuxinator and tmux. Now essentially my terminal transforms into various workbenches or workflows that I can use. So this, philosophy here is with compositional sessions, I can build a command workspace through exploration and kind of running various snippets in this way. So super useful, and those two types of sessions plus the static sessions are really interesting. So let's summarize it real quick. We have a static sessions which have a fixed file structure that we've seen. It is a YAML file, and when you have persistent sessions, like you've seen my sessions for playing music or sessions for exploring my home lab, those are kind of set in stone and they have certain properties that you want to use. Dynamic sessions, which are kind of helper sessions, in this case was the Git monitor session where I can run lazy Git and other functions inside, not inside, but based off of a specific session or a folder. Then we have event-based sessions that you've seen that support my Argos here, which is essentially tracking the state of various external services. We have Ephemeral one, which I talked briefly about and showed you how you could use it with Alacrity, for instance. And finally, Compositional session, which is kind of like having dedicated session with windows for every other session. And one cool thing about this snippet session, so you can, let's swap to snippets again. You can see that currently we have Home Lab and YouTube here. So this corresponds to our two sessions. But if I close Home Lab, by closing it, you see that the window is gone. So it kind of cleans the moment I close the session. If there's a window present here, it closes it and keeps it all very clean. So the key learnings I hope you can take from this video: first of all, thinking about terminal a little bit more in terms of your flexible and dynamic workbench. I probably have 80% of my workflow from a terminal. I am using terminal for coding, running tests, interacting with any kind of text files, playing music, you name it. Also watching YouTube videos. Funny enough, I have discovered a cool program for watching YouTube videos as well. Of course, the videos themselves play in MPV, but I can manipulate it from the terminal. So I'm using terminal, Slack, and web browser. And that's really just it. So 80% of my workflow is within terminal. That's why I put so much effort and work to make sure that this is exactly as I want it to have. So one learning is that I would love for you to think about swapping the mental model from just thinking of a session as just a different terminal layout to more shifting to, okay, this is my dedicated workbench that can have various properties attached to it and its own work stream. Context awareness is important. So we have things like folders, repositories, projects, various kinds of state that the sessions themselves can utilize and hook into. So events, for instance, which is again another layer of thinking about it. And finally, think that this is task-oriented workspaces or workbenches, not necessarily just various layouts of windows and panes. And this hopefully will give you a lot of flexibility in how you interact with your daily work, personal projects, or just how you work with computers in general. So here are a little bit of resources as usual, just to good reading about tmuxinator, tmux, and all the other things. I'll leave a few links to the video, or they should appear somewhere now here. So you can kind of follow the right videos. But yeah, that's all for today. I really hope I inspired you to look at using terminal tmux sessions in a different way and look at them in a different light. And you will look at your own workflow and take something from my video and adopt it. I would love to hear how you're using tmux or other programs like Screen or Zelish, maybe to have a similar workflow. I'm always very interested in discovering what you guys do or think. But otherwise, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and as always, see you in next video.